Having never really been to South America, we decided it was finally time to go. We had 9 days and picked Argentina for 3 reasons. We wanted to see Patagonia, we wanted to visit wine country, and we had a friend living in Buenos Aires. And since most international flights begin and end in Buenos Aires, our trip started there.
Bienvenidos! We are in Argentina, and we're beginning our trip in Buenos Aires. Behind me is the presidential office, also known as the Pink House. It's been known, or the legend says that it was painted with the blood of Argentinians. And we're standing in Congressional Plaza.
Buenos Aires is the European-inspired capital of Argentina, which not so long ago was one of the wealthiest countries in the world. But a tumultuous 20th and 21st century left the country poorer and left Buenos Aires the bustling, gritty metropolis it is today.
Buenos Aires has a couple worthwhile museums to visit, including the Bellas Artes. However, if you just have a couple days in Buenos Aires, I would recommend exploring the colorful neighborhoods.
Buenos Aires has several charming neighborhoods that are worth a visit, and they're all easily connected by taxi cabs, which are hailable in the street, and a good, reliable bus system. There is a metro, but even the locals complain about the pickpockets and scammers. Above ground, Buenos Aires felt much safer than some people make it out to be. However, it's still inadvisable to walk around with your camera in sight.
To stroll through in Buenos Aires are Palermo.
If you only have time for one neighborhood in Buenos Aires, make it Palermo. Palermo is one of the more well-known neighborhoods in Buenos Aires. It's famous for its outdoor markets, cafes, coffee shops, and street art. For a closer look at one of Buenos Aires' more elegant neighborhoods, head to Recoleta, which is home to a 19th century cemetery where many of Buenos Aires' elite were laid to rest, including Eva Perón, aka Evita. Food is a high point of Argentine culture, and no matter where you are, you're never far from a restaurant serving its national dish, asado, which is a selection of grilled meats.
Alright, so we're here in Buenos Aires, and Stephanie was nice enough to cook us an asado. Can you give us a little intro on asado?
Yeah, so this is a parrilla, and here on the grill we have a little chicken, a little blood sausage or morcilla, some chorizo, we have fennel, and this is bife de chorizo. It's a really good cut of meat that's going to be done in like an hour and really delicious. And some all-American juicy little ribs.
So, if you're lucky enough to stay with a friend in Buenos Aires, perhaps they will make you an asado.
Word. Cut.
The only thing more abundant in Argentine cuisine than grilled meat is wine, and much of it comes from the region of Mendoza, which is about an hour and a half to the west from Buenos Aires by plane. With 2 full days in Mendoza, you can explore the wineries just outside the city, as well as those further south in the Uco Valley. And depending on where you're staying, you might even be able to bike to some of the wineries. Just a word of warning, the roads aren't in great shape, and there are the occasional stray dogs. But if biking isn't your thing, there's an abundance of cheap cabs, organized tours, and private drivers that will happily shuttle you from vineyard to vineyard.
Today we are exploring Mendoza. We were originally going to ride our bikes to the different wineries, but there's a bit of rain in the forecast, so we decided to take a cab to the first winery, which is called Uco Valley. Not quite sure. And from here, we are going to make our way to another winery for lunch.
Many of the wineries in Mendoza are as well known for their restaurants as they are for their wines. Uco Valley is one of those. Not surprisingly, your lunch will include a wine tasting, as well as great views of the vineyards, and most often, a large chunk of grilled red meat. If you're planning a trip to Mendoza, assume you can only hit 3 or 4 wineries per day. Unlike the United States and Europe, where you can just show up and do a tasting, here you'll need to make a reservation in advance, and your tasting will usually include a long tour of the winery. These will often last well over an hour. Wineries are not the only place for a good meal in Mendoza. After a full day of drinking and eating, you're going to want to head to downtown Mendoza to check out the restaurant scene. And one of the most famous is the Meat Eater's Paradise, Francis Mallmann's 1884. If you're not familiar with Chef Mallmann, check out the Netflix series Chef's Table. This is the courtyard of the restaurant. It has a huge grill and a massive clay oven. And just because you had a steak for lunch doesn't mean you'll be able to resist their signature dish. But don't worry, there's more than just red meat on the menu. For an appetizer, we shared a delicious spiced octopus, and Nikki had a great pork loin with some roasted local vegetables. On our second full day in Mendoza, we hired a private driver to take us to the Uco Valley, which is about 30 to 45 minutes south of Mendoza. The scenery here in the Uco Valley is nicer than the area closer to the city. If you only have one day in wine country, head down to the Uco Valley.
Nikki, why don't you tell us where we are right now?
Sure. We are having lunch at La Azul, which is the last winery in Uco Valley that's 100% owned by Argentinians. Today we're having some braised pork that's been braising in a clay oven for like 8 hours, which should be delicious. And we have a place to ourselves today. It's sunny, it's beautiful, no rain in sight, knock on wood. I think we're in for a treat.
The region of Mendoza is technically a desert, nestled under the Andes Mountains. It was Italian and Spanish immigrants who realized that the warm climate, abundance of sun, and runoff from snow in the mountains would make the region a great area to grow grapes. If we had to pick a favorite winery of all the ones we saw, it would have to be Salentine. Part winery, part art museum, part massive underground concrete bunker, this place was befitting of any Bond villain. But the unquestionable highlight was the Greek amphitheater-style aging room, complete with a grand piano, which Nikki decided to test out. While we both enjoyed eating and drinking our way across northern Argentina, our favorite part of the trip was Patagonia. Patagonia is a large region in South America, encompassing much of Argentina and Chile, as well as the Andes mountain chain. It also has many diverse regions. In the west, you'll find huge glaciers. In the northeast, an abundance of wildlife. The center is dominated by endless flat plains. With only a few nights, we chose the city of Ushuaia, often referred to as the southernmost city in the world. From here, many excursions leave for Antarctica. It's also the place where the Andes Mountains curve around the southern tip of South America and quite literally fall off into the ocean. There's no shortage of outdoor activities to enjoy in Patagonia, and Ushuaia is full of companies willing to help you explore them. We hired Tierra Turismo for a half-day guided hike and drive through the Tierra del Fuego National Park. When European explorers arrived in this far-off corner of the world, they were greeted by smoke from the native people's fires. Hence they named this land Tierra del Fuego, Land of Fire. Inside the park, conditions are calm, shielded from the elements by the Andes Mountains. But outside, on the Beagle Channel, the wind howls for most of the year. So much so that the trees exposed to the elements are in a permanent state of windswept. Conditions are so harsh here that locals say if it doesn't swim or it doesn't fly, it doesn't live here. Which leads us to our trip's final and cutest excursion. About a 2 hours drive and 15-minute Zodiac ride from the main shore is one of the largest penguin colonies in South America, with tens of thousands of penguins. In October, they come ashore to start laying their eggs. We got to spend an hour walking around the island and watching penguins interact. The ones on the beach are actually drying themselves off before they go to their nest. Penguins are very social animals. They pick one mate for life, they're obsessed with cleanliness, and each mating season, the male penguin will bring the female penguin the shiniest black pebble he can find. Well, that's it from South America. Buenas noches from Argentina.
Here is your home. They recognize the sound of their voice, and also, of course, they recognize the guys.
Bienvenidos! Welcome! Okay, hold on. It's a little windy.
Let me,
Buenos dias!
Put your hand up, show how big they are.
¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo se llama?
Nikki.
Nicky, ¿cómo estás?
Nikki! Okay.
Sorry.